Hey yo, what's up? This is the Protect Your Neck podcast, and I'm your host, Dan Tom. Analyst is work you can find over at MMAJunkie.com. But on this here program, the Protect Your Neck podcast, we break down high-level MMA. That's what we're going to do here today tonight whenever you're listening to this. Hopefully it's for the fight, recording this late Thursday night before the fights. It's UFC Austin, UFC on ESPN 37, UFC Fight Night, Cater versus Emmett. I was going to say the Fighting Fulmer, baby. No, I like Josh Emmett, but we'll get to that fight. Check the timestamps for when that breakdown starts from top to bottom as per usual. I'll recap my picks and plays at the end of the episode from top to bottom. I'm going to start with a couple shouts and a recap, but also going to try to blast this as fast as possible because I'm tired. My energy's not great, but what are you going to do? It's Thursday night, and I got to be up early for conditioning for the Train Ultra program. They usually send us off for the week with some hard conditioning. Tuesdays and Fridays are the hard conditioning days. I don't like to miss those most of all because I need those most of all. Worst enemy is getting tired in there, as we saw in the main event for, UFC 275. Although, not so much tired as it was, being in a war and body shots, which we'll get to. But yeah, I'm definitely feeling like Teixeira between rounds with obviously not fighting or being a badass like Teixeira, quite the opposite. But still, as far as exhaustion levels go, it's just like, oh man. But it's good. Down in the 190s, program's going great. We'll keep the update, I guess, for that. But yeah, we'll see how fast we can get through. Just some quick shouts. I wrote my man Eric at Eric Bets Fights, Eric with a K. Gonna be hopefully jumping on his show in a little bit, sometime in the future. I've been talking to him, but I wanted to give him a shout. I was talking about the other episode, like I talk shit, but there's really just tons of we all talk shit on the MMA betting community. Why not, right? But no, honestly. Some of the coolest motherfuckers, online in general in this space, however you want to classify it, been in the MMA betting community, so definitely want to shout people. Not in the MMA betting community, but I wrote down here chronic combat conversations. No, those guys are. I got two. See, I also got my man Kyle, which is at Combat CHR at Combat Chronicles, who I also want to give a shout. Excellent kickboxing episode he just put out. Go check out for the match. Go check out Kyle McLaughlin stuff. But Chronic Combat Conversations. Those gentlemen always give me a laugh, and they're definitely one of the podcasts I'll have playing, Saturday morning or maybe even late Friday night, depending, as my dessert per se. And those guys just had me laughing out loud that I had to go write their names down. A man I've been trying to get on for a minute, and it's just been my fault because I've been busy. I've been busy. And not being heavy guest booking, as you guys know, but my man Luke at SWR_betting. Of course, my man Liam at Liam Picks Fights. He's been killing it. I'll shout my guy Clint in the recap here. Clint McLean. Want to shout my man Aaron, always just saying nice things. Aaron Bronstetter, TSN MMA show, and in one of his latest TSN MMA shows, he gave a shout that I agree with, so I want to double dip on that shout. Kind of did online a bit, but Aaron said it best. If you're looking for a fighter, if he's got an interview, he's probably already been interviewed by James Lynch, and I haven't given him a shout in a minute on here, I believe, so I want to make sure I shout that, because I know plenty of us in the betting industry, we check out them Lynch on Sport, at Lynch on Sports, by the way, his interviews. So you got to give shouts. The people doing fine work and all the different beats. It was cool to hear Southpaw Pod. It's cool to hear Jason Sargis and my guy, of course, Sam Yang, recapping, giving some of their technical analysis. A lot of great stuff. Really good technical recap there, UFC 275. I'll try to blow through results, trying to get hung up too much on points, although some of your boys' points were proven. And lastly but not leastly, everybody who has jumped on my man Tim B, or should I say at Tim Spire, Spyre, on Twitter, who does still do work for Bloody Elbow. I believe he shifted position there. Of course, fine people over there at Bloody Elbow. Good. Shouts to my man Vic Rodriguez. Of course, Steffi Hayes. Some dude named Zane Simon. Of course, you guys know him. I'll jump on podcast with him and all the rest. But no, Tim was just giving me a shout out and made a hashtag. What's the hashtag? Let me put it out here. I don't know where he came. It just out of nowhere. He's just a kind freaking soul. But the hashtag get Dan Tom to 1K subs on my YouTube channel. That's Daniel Tom MMA TOM MMA on YouTube. I haven't been promoting it too much because, again, YouTube, as well as you YouTubers, of course, as you should, it's video. You hate audio uploads. Shout out to my old producer there, Jordan. Who taught me that obvious thing that I should have already known, amongst many other useful things that I still have not gotten to. And as I'm getting around to those things, I was going to wait for that, but procrastination's a son of a bitch. And sometimes the time is now. And I know I'm a little later than I wanted to be this week, up a little later than I wanted to be. But I've been getting a lot done, man, and I'm in a groove of sorts. So you know what? Let's accept the compliment, accept the push, Dan, accept some love, if you will, which is hard for me to do. Not to get psychological, but it's weird for me like that. But I appreciate the shit out of it. Appreciate the shit out of you guys. And the subs have gone up like almost like 150 or something since he's posted that. What am I? I'll see what I'm at right now. YouTube. Let's see. Where am I? 822 subscribers. So, at Dan Tom MMA on Twitter, I posted a little thread about it and some promises, basically. I'm going to do recaps of pay-per-view, recap shows. And I'm going to have a guest for either the breakdown or the recap. And either one or both, ideally, will be both video on the YouTube channel. But you know how circumstances are. Sometimes whether it's the recap or the preview, you can't get a guest, or you can only record an audio. So I definitely want to leave myself those out and not make unrealistic promises. But rest assured that I'm going to start implementing those. I'm going to implement it before we get to 1,000. I'm just going to assume you guys are all going to help me get there, right? And also, I know I've been promising to bring back the top 5 shows, but this one is a really good one. I want to make sure I'm studying, and I have been in my free time and been going down multiple rabbit holes, watching Japanese MMA from the 90s, as well as like old UFC events, just all the way through for the shits of it, which has been fun. But yeah, I'm going to do a pre-2000s with my man. Of course, that's why I had it written down earlier. Kyle McLaughlin at Combat CHR for the Combat Chronicles podcast. I got to double check. I was recently trying to go through the 5-star ratings and reviews for some podcasts and make sure I hit Kyle's up. But yeah, and then I can't remember the third, which was, I'll pull it up now. Sorry. Finally by top 5. I'll finally start scheduling these breakdown pods. And since, again, I am adding stuff on Twitter, and you guys should be following me there anyways and whatnot, and maybe, if I get more active on Instagram, I'll go ahead and share it there. But since I will be sharing it through social platforms / possibly more platforms, but Twitter at Dan Tom MMA, where I always post all my picks and this and that, I'll just leave myself an out, so I'm not pressured and this and that like I was tonight, which I still didn't get through because it's like 14 fights, which equals almost 30 fighters, right? That's a lot to divvy up, especially if you're actually really doing the work and stuff. And shouts to the people who do. I'm not the only person. There's definitely a lot of you crazies that have multiplied like myself. So respect, no hate, respect. But yeah, crazy is what it is, though. Let's be honest, right? Come on now. Lastly, I also, we'll put together that piece I keep promising, that Rodney Mullen GSP one. Trust me. But I definitely owe you guys now with this push. So thanks. Sorry for the shameless self-promotions. Let's get to the recap. UFC 275. All right. We went 6-5 overall in picks, 0-1 in parlay pieces, 1-1 in straight plays, 2-3-1 in props, 1-5 in round flyers, and that 1-5 in the round flyers, those round flyers, baby, saved my ass, made for a winning night with the ads. So let's get to that and knock that out real quick. Yuri Prochazka defeated Glover Teixeira in a title fight. Just brutal, of course. Everything's kind of been said. It was brutal to see it happen that way. Somebody asked me on Twitter and it'll get lost now. I'm sorry. I'm going to shout you for a breakdown of that with the no hooks in and whatnot. When you're exhausted, you don't need the hooks in to finish an RNC. When you're off to almost to the side, it almost becomes like an RNC bulldog variation. Again, choke that can be finished. Against better people, not as much, but when you're in a fight, you're hurt, you're tired, you got to give that leeway there, right? We've seen, the Rodolfo Vieiras of the world, right? This feels almost just like it, even though Glover is not accoladed in the gi of sorts as a Vieira, but he is, as far as MMA grappling goes, and he did Abu Dhabi Combat Club and wrestling and stuff, so obviously Glover makes sense that he translates really well to MMA. Yeah, he feels of royalty, BJJ grappling royalty of the sorts, right? So just very shocking, but that's why opportunism is so dangerous in the hands of a very capable, athletic martial artist fighter. You check all the boxes really for Yuri, no hate, but at the same time, why I also kind of do begrudgingly hate opportunism, because man, it can snatch that feel good, and he already got the feel good story. He got the title, sure, but felt like this could be one last ride, and a lot of the opportunities were there. But I feel like going back and watching, which I didn't get to go back and watch a lot, so I'm sorry. It's just hard to justify it again. I wasn't even able to get through this week's slot, folks, and if your boy, I'll keep you abreast of employment opportunities. I'm still kind of sorting those. Looking, waiting, ain't hating, all the. I was trying to make a rhyme there. I failed, but yeah, it's late. Let's push through here, Dan. But yeah, I'll keep you guys abreast of that. But yeah, my ass is like, gonna have to look for more work out there, which I do need to do. I gotta make sure I got my stuff prioritized. So hard to justify to look back, unfortunately. But I feel like what's more worth breaking down were the escapes, that Yuri was able to, kind of survive, although they were giving each other opportunities to keep live throughout the fight. Again, I'm sure plenty of people have went through this. But this was a bodywork card. It was all, remember I went into the bodywork tangent? I gave all the different examples. We went ahead and had all the different examples of this fight, And this is one where the bodywork that Prochazka did throughout carried and contributed to the end, and that's what Glover was citing. John Hackelman also, back to the original question a podcast listener gave on the neck, cited Teixeira had neck issues. I don't know if it was lingering and got reactivated in the fight, like he did to Jan Blachowicz, or it was just neck issues that were created in the fight. I mean, it was a hell of a fight, right? So really, it was kind of a confluence, right? What I'm looking for. It was a combination of all those things. So really hard to pinpoint or criticize technique that again has shown to work, is functional, and is even shown to work in the UFC. Different extents. But bodywork, baby. Again, not saying it for no reason. And we'll hold that point for later as we get down. Valentina Shevchenko defeated Taila Santos by split decision. Some people I respect out there were upset with the Santos not getting it, or thought she could have got it, right? And regardless, I think all I had was the over, so I don't know how much too much bias I'm speaking. You gotta state your own bias on these things, right, folks? Especially when we're making these arguments that should be action based primarily, right? That's what we're discussing here as far as scoring. I want to shout the Couchside judges who had a very level-headed talk. They were really good as far as scoring criteria talk, being level-headed. And again, you don't have to agree with everything I say. They say. The Sean Sheehans of the world, the hardcore sticklers of criteria, and whatnot, right? You don't have to always agree with every opinion, but you got to root your argument in the action, and regardless whether we like it or not, it's kind of the criteria that exists, and you got to kind of tether your arguments to said criteria. Now, I had it 48-47 Shevchenko. I told someone online who asked me how I scored. Again, I haven't really been committing too hard to scores because I'm betting on a lot of these fights. I don't feel that it's the best to do. To put my, I see the blue check mark, the MMA junkie. People just associate me with like some important media when I'm not, and will just take the scorecard to heart, or it'll get reposted on a broadcast. Like, I want to make sure I've come to respect. Over time, judging and the judging role and how difficult it is, to the extent that like I want to make sure that before I throw an opinion out there, or much less a score, right, that is a strong statement without context to it, because you're just kind of throwing a score out there. I want to make sure I'm not super inebriated, distracted. Not that I'm ever super inebriated, but even inebriated, let's just say, right? Distracted, this or that, and hold myself to that standard. So you don't see me throw scores out there too much, and I am distracted off. To be honest, that more times than not, my drinking's gone way down lately, in preparation for this program, and also because of this program. But yeah, excuse me. So yeah, I was trying to throw out scores, but someone asked, and I was like, I think 2-4-5 was my initial impression. And then on rewatch, I still felt that way. I was much more forgiving to Clemens Werner, who gave the 49-40. Not that I was threw any shade or anything in the first place, but I did see a lot of shade toward Clemens Werner for that one. And excuse me. And again, even though I don't necessarily agree with certain parts of the wording of the criteria, much less how it's interpreted, whether by deduction of just looking at how the fight was scored and seeing, okay, well, that must be how it was interpreted, or how some people, in the media, which I'll get to, tend to, I don't know if obtusely is the right word, but overly reductively interpret, which I think is a real trapping. You've got half the people that are either like fighters or like old school fans, and I definitely come from this side of the fence, so I get it, are really reluctant to even read or acknowledge the criteria, and the fact that it's getting thrown around so much, and we're actually seeing, in the judge's defense, minus the 10-8 stuff for that whole Dana White reason from Blachowicz, Adesanya, outside of that, they've been, the fights have largely been going to the right person, even with the rogue card and rogue score here or there, right? And they have also largely been uniform as far as criteria interpretation, as far as immediate damage over cumulative, although effective striking and grappling is written first. So I don't know if it's like dog food, is it like the ingredients that are written first are inherently valued more, right? I don't know. Judging criteria as a similar thing, but it sounds crazy, but you can really, you'd be surprised how much you can interpret and twist words. That's why, writing is very dangerous, and more language specialists, that's their primary argument with the criteria. Guys like John Anik, who was really in line with him and Kenny Florian, by the way, on the Anik and Florian podcast. And by the way, my guy Aaron Bronsteter did a phenomenal job on his guest spot. That was cool to see him get some shine on, well-deserved shine on there. Aaron made some great points, and Aaron, even though I don't want to say stickler to the criteria, because we all should be sticklers to the criteria, right? But that being said, the criteria, we can't pretend. it is a perfect document, or nor specifically written, because it is not a perfect document. And the people who would argue or even wrote the document will tell you that it is purposely broadly written, and or the people that follow and abide, and represent that, being the commission, judges, and whatnot. Tell you it's written broadly for a purpose, because it's not a perfect sport. It's a volatile, crazy sport that's really hard to pinpoint. We're still working on it, folks. But at the same time, Aaron can be like, you know what? Yeah, I agree. With the way it's written and interpreted, we can't, we are seeing, it's fair to accuse it of being biased against grappling. Now, you can be like, well, it used to be, overly reward grappling. You know what? I would argue that's true. But does that make it right to overly reward the other way? Can we, God forbid, find middle ground? I know there's not enough one side or the other in this world, right? And right now, like I was saying, you got one side who's reluctant to acknowledge criteria, and then you got the other side who knows the criteria, and because it's human nature and whatnot, and like my guy Sean Sheehan will talk about, jumping in my comments, with some short answers there, and kind of hitting me with some friendly fire. But I get it, because you're getting people coming at you going, what the fuck, shut up with the criteria, nerd, and like saying all the mean shit that I get to on the internet. I get it. And just like myself, again, I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't acknowledge it. When people go the other way, especially if you're wired like me, oh boy, do you want to lean even harder the other way from them, right? And so I get that. That's human nature. But again, just like I'm careful to levy a score because of what it means. And even though I kind of piss on my position with the shit that I talk on here and publicly, that doesn't mean I don't respect in general the positions of media and the positions of other positions as well. So saying that, I would warn my fellow media members of being too overly reductive with it, and too, and don't get me wrong, I've been honestly getting sick of the Sal D'Amato memes and all the like. There's so many judges that have had suspect scorecards, including the judges that I like, or even if there's judges that you like, they would have turned in suspect scorecards too. Guys like Sal D'Amato just work all the damn time, so he definitely turns in, or we hear his name the most. And I, for one, agree with him probably the least of most judges. But even me, it's like I get it. I hate that thing too. But at the same time, we can't pretend that judges are infallible. We can't be that, Simpsons Apu Quickie Mart meme where it's like sensible criticism, the judges, and then diving in front of it is like MMA media members who love to tell you about all, how they talk to judges all the time and know the scoring criteria, and I'm not trying to take a shot or whatever. I'm trying to talk to those judges as well and whatnot. And luckily, some of those MMA media members that I told you about are kind enough to share their sources, because that is a real fickle thing too. People like to will brag about their information, but then you'll ask them for a source, and they'll be like, no. And I get it or whatever, but I always find it funny for me, because you guys know how I'm wired, for all my faults, a fucking grifter, thief, networker, much less even politely doing networking the right way. None of those things are in my playbook. So I always laugh when media members or colleagues of mine are so reluctant to give me any a basic connect, when it's for a very basic overt reason. It's I'm not trying to fuck you over, buddy. But you'd be surprised, by the way. Anyway, so I always kind of get antsy with that. But but yeah, I really do am going to follow up with that and try to make contact. And again, not to brag, I've talked to, and not saying other people are doing that. I'm just saying, it's not to tout. I just genuinely want answers to these things, because some of these things, like not just the body work thing, but like how about what was another thing that I brought up, folks, was leveraging shots. People punching when they have their back taken. That was another thing with this. This episode's gonna be longer than I thought, probably already. Sorry, but like with the Santos and Shevchenko in the first round, and the reason why I don't give Santos the second round is because she doesn't have the back or go for submissions and throw a lot of strikes or anything like that. And even though she doesn't throw a lot of strikes when she has the back, she's going for submissions, and she's in cranking position. And even though Valentina, said she wasn't close, like, by the way, I love Valentina, but you're not going to get a good interview from her, a good answer from her. She's like very like just competitive and is going to say, nothing hurt me, nothing was this, da-da-da-da. I forget, there was a point in like one of her pre-fight interviews where someone was like, oh yeah, she said this, and you just saw like Valentina like try to like laugh it off, but she did like the worst job. She did like, if an actress was like, like, okay, like this is an awkward teen comedy or dark comedy or whatever, and you need to laugh something off, of make it obvious you're laughing it off because you're super awkward, and that's what she did. But yeah, so it's always hard to tell from her answers. But like, and this is tough too, because you've got people like I respect that on podcasts who I know have trained all the way to former UFC world champions crediting these shots, right? And my opinion is definitely shit to the latter, right? And I respect the opinions of both and everyone in between. But here's the thing, and I tweeted this question. I'm like, when has anybody been stopped? I'm like, wait, when has everyone even been hurt? And someone give me one example. And again, my fault. I wasn't able to go back and see what the fight was, but someone referenced like one fight though, and although I didn't get to go back and see it, the point was it was only like one fight, is all anybody could think of, right? And I retweeted this and still nothing. And I did watch this twice. Actually, this was the one thing I did go back and watch on Sunday morning. I went back to watch this through, and I heard people I respect say that they thought it was damaging and it got Santos off the game, but like, she didn't even look visibly bothered. I'm on both my watch throughs. It didn't deter any of her submission attempts. All of her grips, if she ever let go of a grip, it looked very natural, as in like a natural, like, okay, abort, let me pull away and then reattack kind of a hand thing. Like, none of them seem to have to do much with the strikes. Were they harder strikes than most fighters can get off from there? And was she maybe pushing off the ground? And can you maybe push off the ground if you have your back taken and, the back taker is between you and the floor and you've got some foot push leverage to add to the punch? I mean, I guess sure, but like, no one is like, folks, like, punching across from you is super weak. That's the reason why you take angles to the weak side, right? Is because when somebody punches across from them, it immediately takes power away. This is a rule of thumb for all martial arts, getting to the weak side. And when somebody is having to punch across from them so much they're having to punch behind them, and their feet aren't even firmly planted on the ground. Like, what kind of power are you really getting there? Are we really having this argument? Now, I believe a lot of, I'm still open to a 49-46 because if you look at it, I don't think really any of Santos's offensive flurry that she kind of crashes in with lands cleanly. Everything's either checked, evaded, doesn't land clean. I think Santos, I want to say it's either Santos or Shevchenko. Like one of the most cleanest shots comes from one of them, and it's a body knee. And neither argument. It was probably the most effective shot in the round. And seeing a bunch of different arguments for different fighters, no one cited that strike. And I feel like we're just, and again, it's a body shot, but again, those shots even if you're the one with the back to your cage, those knees to the body are real brutal in there. and they can quietly turn the tempo of a fight. No one even acknowledges that in their argument. And that's what I would. I don't give a fuck who you even scored the round for, folks. But again, it's like, why don't we acknowledge the actual strike? We're acknowledging all these unleveraging strikes. So, I mean, I want to say it's actually Shevchenko that lands the knee, that body knee too, as well. So it's like you'd be giving her the round off that and the strikes on the ground. Now, don't get me wrong, the strikes are definitely annoying. And let's say there's a little bit more striking time where Valentina is able to maybe get off a couple more strikes, right? And we're in a more of an even round, right? And let's say the control time is, we'll give her another 30 or 45 seconds even of control time, but let's say she only goes for one clear submission and the rest she's not even really even striking, right? So essentially you've got Valentina out striking her, and then, she's really inactive. She's got a decent chunk of control time, but she's really inactive. Maybe one submission attempt, right? At that point, kind of like, again, Menafield, William Knight, even though it's a much more dominant position than pushing someone against the cage, the sole inactivity and early work in the round leaves the door open for, if you want to cite those strikes as swaying it, because, yeah, she got the back, but what did she do with it? Valentina did more than she did with that position. And then I'd be totally okay with that argument. And again, I'm somewhat okay with it here. Again, I'm on second rewatch. Like, okay, yeah, maybe Clemens Werner, he's got a good eye, and he saw that, because you always can't count on it. Even these quote unquote statisticians, we'll talk about it with Gregory Rodriguez and his last fight, and how many leg kicks he checked. But you look at the stats, and they give credit pretty much almost all of them for Petrosian. You got to be careful with those, but maybe Clemens Werner, he actually has an eye, and he saw things that were checked and blocked and that actually missed. One of my biggest complaints, am I really going to give crap to Clemens Werner for catching it live the first time, right? So maybe he saw that, and then he didn't weigh the submissions because he's very much leaning into, the criteria and interpreting it in the way that biases towards striking. And with the way the criteria is written, whether I agree with it or you agree with it, folks, well, he could justify that score. I didn't go that way, but he could justify it. I didn't agree with it, but he could certainly justify it under the criteria. I don't like it, but he can justify it under the criteria. So I hate to break it to people that were upset or saying Santos robbery. If you took a shot on Santos as a bettor, I think you should still pat yourself on the back. I know there's no value in a losing ticket, but hey, man, you know what? You don't get many of these shots. The most inflated lines come in WMMA. You could blind bet these things as the dog and still justify it, and I really can't give you crap, right? But when the dog actually puts up a fight like Tyler Santos did, and she could have arguably won if they went to a technical decision, it would have been left to one cheeky judge not using the 10-10, knowing that, wow, if I score this, I'm actually going to give the belt away with my scorecard, and they get scared. And again, they could, if they felt they saw enough in 10 seconds of a round to judge it, they can make that argument. But that's what generally the 10-10s are reserved for these incomplete rounds, to try to make it as fair as possible on paper, depending on context. So, again, man, you weren't crazy for betting Santos. I still think you should pat yourself on the back. But I just warn anybody crying robbery here is all. Again, I think the couch side judges do a great job. Dan and Scott, they have their own back and forth as far as the value of those strikes. And by the way, I know I made fun of like body triangle, but body triangle, it should be in the conversation here too. And if anything, as far as cumulative to immediate. It's a small percentage of the pie, but it plays a percentage in both, whether the immediate tightening and securing a position and a potentially fight-ending position, whether it was strikes or submissions, which was the choice of Santos, and cumulative for the potential effects of it, down the line like body shots. But like a body shot, a body triangle can also end a fight, right? Poirier, Pettis, high fucking level fighters. It can end a fight. Perhaps freakish, but it's powerful enough to even be in the freakish department. It would be freakish if someone finished a punching someone who has their back. Sure, it would be in that, but again, back to my tweet. Has it ever been done? Can we shut the fuck up about it? I'm sorry. Can we shut the fuck up about it? Unless it's like the round that I outlined, or this or that. I mean, even I guess it plays in this line, so we can talk about it. Obviously, I'm just kind of sick of these fucking things. But yeah, I don't agree. And lastly, but not leastly, I shout out the Couch Side Judges podcast and their very healthy discourse on the matter. Back to the Anik and Florian podcast. Kenny Florian had a great analogy. Anik just said, and I agree with Anik, where Anik's just like, I don't think we should count for shit either. I'm sure he probably sentiments me with that. But Kenny Florian, again, championship level fighter, analyst, BJJ black belt competitor, brought up a great point, and he was just like, okay, if we're gonna move away from, we're gonna treat it like a sport and abide by rule set, but at the same time pull the card, well, it's a fight and damage is a fight, For one, I'll add, Kenny didn't say this, but for people that are reductive and are like, damage, it's impact in the criteria, and impact, definitely punches have impact. What else has impact? Having someone body triangle you, take your back, put a bunch of pressure on you, tire you out, and make you, and you become their fucking daddy on national TV. That's pretty damn impactful too. But it's a fight. Yeah. Fights don't end in grappling. Pretty sure that before even jiu-jitsu was popular, even back in the 90s, the stupid fucking bro science stat floated around, right? 99% of street fights end up on the ground, But you're right, it's just striking. It's just striking. Rear naked choke that she was going for, that certainly doesn't end fights. How many UFC fights has that ended, right? You want to say it's not a high percentage submission? It's probably the most common one, right? Very proven. But let's talk more about punching behind us and how effective that is. But back to what Kenny Florian said, he's like, okay, we want to talk about fighter, this and that. Well, how about war? That's combat, right? That is the thing in combat. And in any form of war throughout all periods of time, if you get behind somebody, you fuck them up. They are fucked up. They can recover. Hell, maybe they can even stage a comeback and win, right? That's happened in war. That's happened in MMA. Sure, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it's an end-all, be-all. But it's definitely not the fucking position you want to be in. There's a reason why my ass, even though I love Turtle and have tactics to combat and make those turnarounds in a battle, I love doing that, but there's a reason why I get choked out more often than not and get yelled at by my damn coaches. Okay? Because getting someone behind you is one of the worst things possible. What did Yuri Prochazka say? Glover said it was the bodywork that hurt him. And what did Yuri say? And that's why I want to go back and break down his defense, because his number one priority was not giving his back to Glover. Was not giving his back. Arm triangles we can get out of. Ground and pound, I'll let him mount me. We can maybe get out of that. He would be willing to take that. Did not want to give up his back, because it's that damn devastating, folks. And even if it is a happenstance scramble, it still takes skill, and you still fucking earned being there. So you got to score it, and you got to score it soundly when it's secured and effective, impactful, if you will, right? So yeah, a lot of my scoring points were shown, and I would argue I'd argue these are really good points to talk about here. Zhang Weili defeated Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Glad I added those. The sub didn't hit for plus 1,200, but that inside the distance did for plus 3 something. I forget. But yeah, that was a shout out to my passed away kickboxing coach, Tim Lane. You know, when you're out of position on a spinning attack or even a side kick, they get off to your weak side. A way to reset safely is to spin. Again, not punch across your body. The same motion as punching behind you when you have your back taken, because it makes no goddamn sense. You go with the motion, baby. And you spin until it becomes a weak side no more, and you counterbalance yourself that way. You don't do spinning back fists for flash. You do it with purpose. You do it for counterbalancing purposes. Props to Zhang Weili for that. And no hate to Joanna Jędrzejczyk, by the way. Definitely felt for her in her speech. My man Aaron Bronstetter had a very cool thread on a personal interaction and how Jędrzejczyk helped him. But, man, after all the fucking bullshit, you could argue she beat Rose and just all the, Rose twice and then Joanna before that, and having to deal with all the xenophobic, racist, slant-eye memes, communist memes, all the, you name it, she dealt with it. So it just felt real good to see Zhang Weili get a win and remind everybody what's up. Jake Matthews, showing out for Australia, and he defeated Andre Filaho, baby. Shooter McGavin and then Happy Gilmore. Filaho, that's him. That's what he does. He's going around. He's the man in black. But like I said, the Donald Cerrone impression can only go so far. And, I wasn't sure if Matthews was going to grind out a decision with his grappling or find a finish early. And I thought it was going to be a club and sub. So I did see the striking, and I talked about the striking, but did I expect him to stay dedicated to the striking and to look that good? No. Apparently he's been working with Mark Hunt's gold coach, which explains a lot of those counter dipping hooks off the cage. You guys, you see that? It was like kind of like a Bigfoot Silva Mark Hunt won in Brisbane. So man, Jake Matthews. And shout out to my guy. This is where I want to shout out my guy at Die Hard MMA Pod, Clint McLean, man. He's been killing it. Well, he's always killing it, I think. But either way, Clint deserves a shout. I saw him on KO, which got my attention because I was like, wow, okay, someone's on Matthews. That doesn't surprise me, right? He was a pretty popular dog, as he should have been. But I didn't see anybody really mentioning the striking angle. So I was like, wow, okay. Shouts to my man Luca Fury, too, as well. I know Clint had him on, but I didn't catch their breakdown of this fight. But like, I saw that. I was like, wow. And then he had round 2, and I was like, well, that makes sense, actually. And I was like, you know what? Well, he might get it done in round 1, though. And I'm like, round 1 and round 2 are his finishing rounds. I don't want to sweat having to decide between KO, even though it's a juicy number, and I totally see how Clint got there. And it's part of my analysis, but I thought it was going to be club and sub. Do I really want to sweat what the outcome is? And what was I getting? I think I was getting like, what was the Matthews? Plus 1,000 round 1, and then plus 1,400 round 2. So, oh yeah, I was just like, let me just take some flyers on the rounds. He can get it done whatever way he can. And if it's by decision, I still make it back on the money line play, right? And Matthews saved the day. Jake Matthews saved the day. Right there, that was just beautiful. Jack Della Maddalena defeated Ramazan Ameev. His finishing rounds are usually 2 and 3. He's been getting better in round 1, but, I didn't expect it. But Ramazan sold out for a sub, and as soon as he put down the pack, Della Maddalena picked it up. And when you're trying to catch your breath and take a body shot and it's a liver shot, oh, you're donezo, son. You're donezo. It's funny. He was hitting body shots before that, and I was actually midway typing, like, smart of Della Maddalena to go to the body because it's going to prevent... it's going to provide his counter wrestling defense as well as set up fight-changing offense. And it did. And even then, so the finish, the fight-changing offense was yet another body shot. Again, The body, baby, the body. We were working on a passing ground and pound drill, and Justin James, former UFC lightweight, there showed a position like Khabib-like position for ground and pound with a wrist trap, and it's showing that you hit the body there. It's done. He just kind of like would barely tap the person he was demonstrating on under the body, and they like felt it just from a tap because they had him extended out and there was no protection there. And Justin was going, believe me, it sucks. I would rather have them hit me in the head here. And if you guys start competing, you'll understand when people say, I'd rather get knocked out than be hit in the body in some of these positions. And these are fucking fighters. These are fucking tough, cowboy-esque fighters. Okay? Again, folks, the body shot is real. And we don't always know. Like it's not always as obvious as the Amiv. It could be like Teixeira Prochazka, right? So, we'll get to it. Because I didn't get to watch it, but I believe people were upset with the opening fight with Jocelyn Edwards versus Romana Pasquale. Where Edwards, it's hard because Edwards won the fight off of body work because she just was spamming body teeps, and apparently it was a really weird fight. But in the first round, Romana Pasquale is clearly the more damaging fighter by damaging her, getting her to double over with a body shot. Now, this reminded me from description from what I was reading, I didn't see it, of Andre Ewell, Jonathan Martinez, one of my favorite examples. But again, there's plenty of examples of fights where you can accuse maybe it was the body work that was the difference. You look at fights where they're like, and stats don't mean anything, but, and this is just an offhand, but there's plenty just because it's with the closest within reach. Wei Li, Joanna won. Joanna landed more strikes or this or that. It's like, it wasn't that, why'd she lose? Like, it's like you're looking at the wrong stat. Look at the body work. Joanna landed a lot of her strikes was body work, and she certainly landed and threw way more body work than Wei Li. And what's easier to judge? Shots to the head, right? And I get that, and we should want to make things easier, not harder. And again, shouts to John Anik on that Annie and Flooring podcast. He asked about that biases for grappling and striking, and he said a high-level judge who he will not name said essentially the obvious answer, which I wish the criteria, not friends, that I love you and I shout your shows and you're great, but I wish you guys would acknowledge this, because that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying judges are dumb. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm not saying they don't. But you can't, sometimes it's just, human what's subconscious, conscious, human nature, right? Human nature to see the flashy stuff when I talk about these things, right? Human nature to see the headshots over the body. I understand these things. I'm just trying to simply get them acknowledged, right? Rather than fucking play this my side versus your side while the actual landed effective work is not even getting fucking acknowledged. I don't care what side you end up on. Let's have a fucking reasonable discussion about it, And when I tweeted and asked this, because again, I didn't want to jump on, not that it's my style to jump on the judges anyways, right? But even at that, even with just an opinion, whether I'm not jumping on someone or not, I got excited and I wanted to jump all over my point because I'm like, oh shit, is my point getting proven? It sounds like it is from the tweets I'm reading from people I respect, but I didn't see it, so let me get some clarification because I'm not going to have time to rewatch it who knows when, right? Fights are live and I'm doing stuff, so it's like shit. And I got some reasonable explanations in there, and again, man. By the way, shouts to the Severe MMA podcast, great podcast. I shout them all the time. Shout out my guy Sean Sheehan. Last podcast, I tipped my cap to him. I always do, but he's also one. And I'll tell this to him if if he ever wants to have me on his show or this or that. I know I'm not, and it's cool. I don't want it. I have enough to do, and I don't give a shit. I've got a fucking ego. I don't need association, but at the same time, I wish I was in these conversations because this whole scoring shit reminds me of why I got into MMA media in the first place. It's because there's not enough people who come or have the same understanding as from the martial arts side of things. And whilst the people from the martial arts side of things are equally obtuse, reductive in their own ways, right? Where they're on the other side of the fence, we don't have enough people in the fucking middle bridging this gap. And that's the only acknowledgement, that I kind of want there. So, and I'd be more than willing to tell this to Sean, but, I got a shitty show that no one listens to. So, I guess I'll say it here, and I talked to him too, but he just, it's not the place to get into an argument. And again, I didn't see the fight. What am I going to argue about? Nor am I trying to argue. But I think Sean thought I was coming at the judges or criticizing the judges. We can't have that. They're infallible, and so was the criteria. I love Sean, but he can be a little bit guilty of that Simpsons Apu meme, where it's like sensible criticism of the judges. My man Sean Sheehan justifying every move over there via the criteria. And again, you tell the criteria, I'm all ears. It's all good, and more people should, right? And again, if I'm going to pick a side, you got to read the criteria, folks. If anything, I'm on their side. But again, we can't be just reductive and like, no, criteria, no, damage, no, I see this way. And, I kind of was I'm sure he didn't mean it that way, and he tried to elaborate further, but I think Sean was just like, of course they are rewarded if it's effective. And I'm like, it's like, that's kind of a really reductive and borderline smart ass answer, I would dare say, because, of course they're going to reward effective body work, in theory. But even the best well-meaning judges maybe don't always do it. And a lot of times it's just open for argument because, again, shout out to my guy Casey Leydon, bringing up the obvious point in the room that's controversial and shouldn't be, yet not many people acknowledge is, hey, unless we're in there, we really don't know how things feel. We're just fucking guessing, folks. And yeah, if a fighter fucking doubled over and wasn't credited, and granted it was only by one judge, and granted, like the Martinez-Uhl decision, it was by a judge who was clearly a rogue judge who fucked up multiple cards that night, and it shouldn't, but unfortunately does end up reflecting unfairly on the other judges, right? So how fair is it for me to bring up these specific ones when you can tie it to the Judge Solis or Joe Solis, to these Judge Demetrio, which is the one in question in 275 for a lot of the questionable cards, right? Sure, granted. But again, I'm not coming at the judges specifically. My point is whether it's judges, media, fans, unless it's fighters are great at it, which is why the broadcast ends up being good, because you got a lot of fighters in there. But fans, media, and in these close decisions to even these really bad scorecards, bodywork just is a common culprit. Again, we went through different varying of air quote bad decisions to actual bad decisions in my top 5 judges bad scorecards with Scott Fontana on the Protecting Nick podcast. It was our last top 5 episode, and these aren't crazy things to say, folks, but a common culprit in a lot of the things that had people confused. Well, there was a lot of things. There was blood and superficial damage, and the judging on how much was that. How much were they really damaged? How much was it like the Darren Elkins or Michael Chandlers of the world who just bleed when you look at them, right? Body language, being tired being mistaken from hurt, both being negative and taking away from the actual good work the fighter was doing. Arguably enough work to win the round, right? Body work, as far as, quality work being done, not being rewarded. These examples that I just recently cited where the fighter was clearly hurt. Fighter hurt most in the fight, closest to getting a finish was from body work, and yet seemingly ignored because you have no other reason to assume. Again, not hunt these judges down when I'm saying this, but I'm just saying you have no other reason to assume that body work was ignored when fucking Andre Uhl or Jocelyn Edwards, apparently, I didn't go back to see, wince, grab their body and turn away. Like, we're not rewarding that, Again, where's the damage? Where's the damage crowd? Where are you guys at? And by the way, people in the damage crowd did cite this fight. I'm not calling everybody out, but you get what I'm saying here. Let's keep that same energy, right? That's all. And just, and then, and again, I love Sean, but later he was just like, what fight are we talking about here? I'm like, it's like, which round are we talking about? What fight are we talking about? Like, Uhl Martinez or Pascal Edwards, and I thought, I'm like, wait a minute, if I'm having to ask this, I'm like, does he even know what fight I'm even talking about? He just came, so again, I'm not trying to fucking start shit with a dude I respect here, but I'm just saying, comes into my comments not knowing what fight I'm talking about to argue on behalf of the judges. If that's not, the Apu Quickie Mart meme, I don't know what is. And I love Sean. He does a fantastic job, which is why I constantly give him shouts. It's probably like first time I'm criticizing the guy, really, to be honest. But like, again, I think he's getting a lot of deserved credit, as he should. He's been putting the most work than any of the other media people as far as scoring, and he deserves that distinction. But as this is becoming more of a topic in general, and as he becomes someone to point to, I just will say, and I'll again, no problem saying this to his face, is that I would warn him and everybody else, and I've been keeping the same energy. I've been saying this, but I'm saying to Sean specifically because he specifically came into my comments and provided a perfect example of it. Let's be careful not to be reductive with it. Let's be careful not to be reductive, especially when the top two ingredients are effective striking and grappling. And maybe it doesn't matter which one or what thing is written first in what order, as compared to the dog food example, but again, man, you got to know what the fuck you're looking at the end of the day. I appreciate tools, and we should give the judges more tools. I'm all for that. We shouldn't make it hard, but making it too easy and too reductive to this damage argument is really dangerous, because even my beloved body shots, I can't tell you how everyone hurts. I don't claim to, by the way. I just, God forbid, actually acknowledge them like few people do. But if we go too far down that rabbit hole, whether you want to be, a damage boy or actually use the word that's used in the criteria, which is impact, both damage and impact are subjective as hell, folks. You know what's not subjective? Taking someone down, taking their back, and making them say fucking daddy, baby. Even if not making it look like you're your daddy. You know what I'm saying? That ain't subjective, folks. That's fucking work, position. That's physical proof. So, it's very demoralizing as well. And if they're not doing anything with that, I think everybody should be throwing strikes more, even if they're going for subs. But even if they're just going for subs, if they're going for subs and actually getting things that qualify as catches, and I will count a solid catch around the chin for a crank, especially if someone has a body triangle, you can finish a fight from that if you know what you're doing and get the proper leverage. So again, we need to be a little more open to the context of around there. And on the other side, people need to say robbery less. And if you're someone who says robbery, go check out the scoring criteria, folks. It's not hard to read. I definitely agree with my media compadres, who I probably just pissed off a good portion of. I'm going to go make sure I left Severe MMA Podcast a 5-star rating and review, because they deserved it before that. But now I feel bad for criticizing my guy. But again, folks, I got to criticize a word, I'm not one to bow at the church of anything. Nothing is infallible to me. I'm sorry. But yeah, all right. Josh Kulabao defeated Sung Woo Choi. This was another fight I got wrong. I bet on Choi, and even there's no way I scored that first round for him. I know he recovered, returned, looked to hurt him too, and I know knockdowns aren't all created equal, nor should we treat them like a boxing thing. But I don't know, man. I cannot score that, and I bet Choi, so that was bad. Again, I keep that same energy, folks. The same energy. Brendan Allen defeated Jacob Malkoon. I'm totally okay with Brendan Allen winning, obviously through criteria. Not a lot of damage done. He kept scrambling, which to Malkoon's defense, Allen kept scrambling, which made it hard for him to strike. But yeah, man, if you can't get off good strikes, or you weren't, you're securing backs and really hard submission catches and the like, then, I don't blame a judge for going Allen. I didn't watch, so I had a lot of timeline influencing me. And, you know me, I not only do I state my bias, but I will, if anything, counter away from the bias. Like I'll like overly correct the steering wheel, right? And I'll be like judging my guy harder. And in fact, most people are like being very favorable to the fighter they judge on. Like, no, I do the opposite, right? So if you sense a little hesitation, that's what it was. It wasn't because I disagree with the scorecard or anything like that. I wasn't trying to add to the misinformation, because again, you got everybody upset at the judges, and then you got the other side of the people who get upset at everybody who is upset at the judges, and then you have some people in the middle that are just in the middle, and they're like not even trying to be harmful, in my case, and I'll still get shit for like saying those things. Misha Tate Mahashate defeated Steve Garcia. Oh wow, it's crazy. Again, not to this is probably why I don't get invited on things, and maybe find myself let go of certain places or whatever. I don't know. This behavior doesn't help. I posted that Jake Matthews thing. Listen, I didn't say any places. I'm just saying I had a winning night. Maybe I didn't even say that. I don't know. It was a very general tweet. All I will say is that people that may or may not have been cited in that tweet who had a losing night were like motherfuckers I never heard of in my life, because they cover multiple different sports, but one of them claimed to be on a 15-0 UFC betting run. I was like, really? I've never heard of you in my life, motherfucker. 15-0 on bets? Like, what the fuck? Even if you were betting the chalkiest of chalk, that's still damn impressive considering the big upsets we've had in just the sport, right? It doesn't matter with big upsets we had. There's no such thing as safe, and a 15-0 run on anything, 15 and not missing, no matter what. That's really hard to do. And it's also really hard to believe when that person's best bet is a straight play on Steve Garcia, minus 310 in the whole card. So I'm sorry to shit on people, but goddamn, you gonna make it that easy? You know what I'm saying? I'm like Bill Murray, just like in like Rushmore, like rejecting the kid like while I'm taking a call, like just rejected, slap, get that shit out of here. 15-0 on bets, in UFC bets, and your best bet is Steve Garcia by chalk. Holy fuck! Beware the articles out there, folks. Beware those who don't show their work. Beware articles that read like they just wrote a Wikipedia and then they disagree with a betting line without even stating any work. They can't even do the mathematic line portion, which I do respect those kind of stats and numbers, folks, and those people who do that. But yeah, tisk. All right, Kyung Ho Kang defeated Dana Badri. Congrats to the Kang betters. I was too afraid from his fight IQ. That's why I picked Dana, but stayed away. Silvana Gomez Juarez defeated Lan Liang Na. Man, I'm glad I got scared away from, or not scared away, but the lines got bet down on the sub props for Liang Na. So I was pondering on taking a shot. But the only person to take a shot was Liang Na. Hope she's okay. And then, of course, we already talked about Jocelyn Edwards defeating Ramona Pascual. But yeah, anyways, so let's go to how long did that fucking take? Wow, 103. All right, long episode. We'll see if we go short for the breakdowns here. UFC on ESPN 37, UFC Austin. All right, we'll go. We got Calvin Keita, minus 230, Josh Emmett, plus 195. Shouts to Brendan Fitz Nation. Really good story on Josh Emmett, man. Like, holy shit. Like, I don't know. I always love these stories. It makes me more endeared to the fighter. I'm definitely more of a fan of Josh Emmett now, after listening to that podcast. But I'm picking against him here. Main event, in-depth breakdown, MMAJunkie.com. Should be up. Ended up going with Cater inside the distance. But obviously, aside from, obviously, Josh Emmett, despite being an underdog, is the bigger threat inside the distance. Cater more likely to win by decision. And I know Emmett has gone 5 rounds outside and been successful of the UFC. That was a while ago, and I know he trains hard. And does seem like a freakish athlete, and I would not be surprised for him to retain his power. But At least in his last fight against Ige, I actually scored it for Ige again as well, going through it. And not by much. It's close fight. But the pace and whatnot, and yeah, I don't see him being the freshest. I could see him maybe still holding some freakish power and having moments in rounds 4 or 5, I meant, for sure. But pace and form, I think, would go to Kattar. Kattar, it's going to be his, 4th 5-rounder in a row. Not sure he's going to want to go all 5, but I'm sure he will be prepared to. And I got to imagine they saw the success both Dan Ige and Shane Burgos had with jabbing and working the body, 2 things Kattar can do. So for that reason, I'm going to go with Kattar. I can't help but see him kind of doing one of those kind of similar Holloway Aldo, or even maybe like Holloway Volkanovski, as far as throws an initial 1-2 shot to kind of get him to slip and dip to his right, as Volk did when he was getting caught by Max early on in the second fight, and as Jose in the first fight. Round 3, I believe, or whatever, that thing gets sparked off. He kind of just slips and then kind of, I could see Kattar doing that, or even feinting it out, and then hitting him with a long right hand in round 3 is the official pick. But not only does Emmett have knockout power, I think you have to watch out for him from southpaw, because people from southpaw stance have had success with Kattar, and then Josh Emmett, that's how he was able to equalize the score against superior boxer and Shane Burgos. Hitting a lot of guys more with his left hand in general from both stances. Getting a better feel for it, working with a lot of pro boxers. That being said, the height, the reach is just going to be huge. And again, the jabbing and potential even body work dynamic here, I think favors Kattar. If anyone does wrestling, I think it favors Kattar, because it'll only tire Emmett. Emmett says wrestling's really tired, which is probably why he doesn't do it. So that alone, too, makes me more suspicious of his, when people have things they don't want to go to, chances are they're not a pace fighter, which he's not. He fights off the back foot. He likes to counter, right? So you'll have the volume edge for Kattar, but the power edge visibly for Emmett, even though Kattar will be hitting hard, too, and will potentially have a finishing ability. In fact, I went ahead and sprinkled on Kattar. Round 3 plus 1200, 0.17 unit. Round 4 plus 2000, 0.10 unit. Round 3 I used a free play, but it was for 0.10 unit, 10 ducats at plus 3300. That's all I got on that. So small exposure. But, if any of those hit, I think they're like 2 unit pop returns. So it makes up for what we're exposing. If one of those hit, which is nice. All right, next fight, Donald Cerrone minus 165. Joe Lozon plus 140. Picked Cerrone and stayed away from the first one. It was either going to be Cerrone by decision or Lozon round 1, or, Lozon or Cerrone maybe, later. People, that was kind of the basic dynamic. But now that it's been rebooked, and even though the crowd would actually probably favor Cerrone, especially, not just Texas crowd, but just a crowd in general, over a guy who's going to, gas and maybe the energy will take hold of him, Lozon. But Cerrone, kind of like I've been trying to fade since the Alex Hernandez. He just hasn't been looked healthy since cutting a lightweight all the way back then. And he's obviously was showing signs of being shot and has kind of really gotten right to that edge, much closer than Lozon is. It looks like. And Cerrone just looks old in multiple ways, man. Looks old, sounds old, just. And I'm not a hater on that, I'm not trying to hate here. Just, I usually don't, like or play up that angle. You guys know me, but man, it just seems bad. And the fact that he was the one with issues from the weight cut and stomach, and maybe it was something he ate, tapioca, tacos, whatever. But the fact is, he just seems really fragile. That body is fragile in many ways, right, folks? We know this already. Joe Lozon knows this. And this is another angle I'm kind of going with this week, and it's one of my favorite angles dating back to one of my biggest bets, Verdum over Cain Velasquez, is that when a fighter fails to show up multiple times, or, really owes it to show up and really made a promise, promised Joe Lozon, I'll show up no matter what. And Donald Cerrone has showed up before. And to his credit, he's won before when he hasn't looked good, He's also lost before when he hasn't looked good. But he shows up, right? And he'll fight. But that's the thing. So that's the real bad thing. No matter what shape he's in, Cerrone's showing up, which would be great for Joe Lozon. I was gonna play the Lozon money line, but what hesitated me from that is it's a co-main event, so I can see how I'm doing before I want to play that. There's no need to play a sketchy underdog in a sketchy fight. You know what I'm saying? And then 2, in Joe's interviews, I feel like, again, for all the reasons I stated, he should have a quiet advantage going into this. But he seems just emotionally pissed, and I don't know how that's going to be work for him or not, just that he had to do the long camp, and he just he's still really hung up on that, and I don't like that. Whereas, Cowboy, his Matthew McConaughey vibes are probably helping him in that regard, he's winning that battle at least, right? Hey, man, I'm just here to have a good time. So that kind of scares me. So, what I did is I got a really good number, or, actually it is really good because it opened smaller than this. You can't get this in all houses. It's not this high, but at my bookie I got round 1 plus 550 for Joe Lozon. I just put $20 on that, for $110 return. So unit return if Lozon gets it done. If we're up by then, I'll actually throw money on Lozon money line, maybe like half a unit or a whole unit, depending how we're doing. All right, and Lozon is the official pick inside the distance. Knockout. Kevin Holland minus 280. Tim Means plus 235. This line is too wide. You know me, man. Oh, I hate making a pick on this fight. Wanted to pick Tim Means really bad here. And here's what I ended up doing. It's hard because I do like Kevin Holland too. I even said some nice words about the Train Alta group recently. But, man, I like where Kevin Holland's at. I like how he looked at 170. I like that he didn't talk with the Alex Oliveira fight, a fighter that brings it to him, doesn't really give him time to talk, and I think that's what we're going to get here, and that, Tim Means bring it to him, could actually do him well. Kevin Holland sounds like he did his homework on Tim Means, which is really impressive. Sounds like he really respects Tim Means, which worries me, because it's like, this would be a spot where it's like, oh, I hope Kevin Holland takes sleeping on Tim Means, and Tim Means reminds everybody, what's up. But Tim Means, even though he was in there were some bad conditions, from injuries to personal tragedies, and he looked like in really bad shape when he took those losses. And even though he's only been getting older and he's 38 now, if you look at his last 3 fights that he's won, he actually looks a little tighter in each fight. And he's been coaching wrestling, and he's been grappling more. He's definitely going to grapple here. Tim Means has been grappling more for a minute. Most people don't pay attention to it for whatever reason. And I could see why Tim Means gets pissed. I remember he got pissed at the George Sullivan fight, at the journalist not talking enough about his ground game. And, I figured people, knew by then, but, I'm seeing a bunch of people questioning, why would people think Tim Means are going to grapple or this or that? And maybe he won't. Maybe he won't even get a chance to. But you know what? Even if he loses this fight, and I'm officially going to pick Kevin Holland here, Tim Means will grapple early, man. He'll shoot early. Not only that, he's been shooting when he gets hurt, which is smart. And he hurt someone, I think Dalby, in his last fight, and then shot. And, people were getting upset, and people didn't like that he, spent the last, maybe whether he was getting tired or hurt or combination of both, he spent the last of it clenching against the fence. Well, he actually throws offense when he's clenching against the fence, but granted, yes, it's boring, but he will score in his defense. But I'm like, you know what? As boring as that is, and as questionable fight IQ of going for the takedown when you hurt somebody, all those things are actually really good in this contest for Tim Means, right? Because you don't want him hurting him, getting excited, and then Holland comes back, because Holland's hard to finish, especially with strikes. He seems like he's done, and then he's doing wacky tube inflatable arms guy, and he's knocking you out, That's what he did early in their career to Jeff Neal. That's one of the more standout welterweight strikers, guys who can counter, southpaw, analog matchups. But you also got to remember that was really early on in their career. That was at a catch weight. It was a really weird fight that Neal was winning, and then it looks like he checks out of it, not to take away, right? But a lot of Kevin Holland's fights are weird. Kevin Holland is 6-2-1 officially against UFC level southpaws, but he he lost the fight. He probably lost the fight to Mearshart, if we're being honest, right? And then he already lost the fight to. So he's probably, so he's arguably like 3-4, or what am I saying? 4-5, 5-4 against UFC Southpaws, 6-2-1, but he could read his 5-4. The Dawkins fight, depending on how that's called. Mearshart fight, right? And these are a lot of the recent Southpaws. He's lost to the bulk of the recent Southpaws he's fought. Granted, Vettori and Brunson largely wrestled him, sure, but again, Means gonna try to do that too here. He's not gonna have the small cage, and even though Means is looking better and his wrestling's been better, and he's underrated and his technical striking is so sick. Like, go watch that Nico Price fight. It's so disgusting that he loses that fight. Oh, he does some of the most fucking coolest shit before just getting leveled. But since then, Means' durability, the guy that got hit in the face with a shovel, shot in the leg, and still threw the guy through the window, like, as it makes sense. That guy's got a lot of miles in and out of the cage on him, and even looking in better shape, even getting wins, right? He's still getting hurt in a lot of these fights, in almost all of his recent fights. And I just feel like that Holland, his opportunistic, accurate laser beam right hand, the way he's taking him serious, the way he's taking things more seriously in general, I feel like he's gonna get a knockout here. And Tim Means can finish too. Don't get me wrong. He's really fucking mean. Hence the name, right? He could, get a force an accumulation stoppage, or beat him up so bad that, on the ground, that Holland turns and gives his back or shoots into something, and Means locks up that way. I mean, these guys both could finish each other off with front headlock chokes. So I'm going to officially pick Holland. My heart's with Means, but I'll tell you the one bet I couldn't turn down in this fight. If this does go to decision, yes, if I'm picking Holland via impact damage to turn that into a finish, well, if it goes to the decision, should he not then be more impactful fighter? Perhaps, but if he's not rocking Means, or even getting a chance to hit Means because Means is hitting takedowns, and Means actually scores from the top, or he's clinching and Means actually scores from the clinch, and or Means is doing his thing and actually just looking like vintage fucking Means and just lighting Holland up on the feet, which could be very well happen. It's a very dangerous proposition, because the longer he's there, and if he's doing well, he can get knocked out. Well, if it goes to decision, I think that has Means all over it. And I saw Means posted decision plus 500. Well, again, another $20 I don't want to see again. Shouts to the co-main event podcast on Lausanne round one for close to the same odds, plus 550. Well, for plus 500, I just threw $20 on there for a possible unit return. We'll see. I don't know. Albert Duraev minus 225. Joaquin Buckley plus 190. Going with Duraev here to get it done by sub, either round one, early round two. If he doesn't get it done by then, he's in trouble. Sure enough, he could also get knocked out by then. The guy has been finished by KOs when he does lose. He's even lost to a guy like Ramzan Ameev, a fight I recently went back to rewatch as my, by the way, streak on Ameev is undefeated as far as that guy, picking that guy's fights. He is not Volkov when it comes to the Russians. But yeah, that scares me, Word on the street is, of course, Duraev owned Buckley over at Extreme Couture in their training sessions. But is Duraev going to do what he did last time against Kopylov? I would hope not. I would hope my guy Eric Nixick, who's been working firmly on the pads, also was in his ear about getting smart. But just like a guy we'll talk about, Roman Dolidze, Eric was trying to tell that guy to fight smart too. But some of these guys are just fucking cowboys. You could have the best cornermen in the world. Eric is one of those. Don't matter, folks. These guys are going to do what they're going to do. So you can't overly count and overly criticize the corners in a lot of these decisions here. And speaking of Extreme Couture, let me tell you guys a story about two guys at Extreme Couture where one owned the other, and you just anointed himself daddy over him in the room. But that's not how the fight played out. There's this guy named Mike Pyle. You guys might have heard of him. And this fresh-faced, I know, he's the veteran. He's the oldest guy in the division now, in the welterweight division. But at the time, Matt Brown was just coming off the Ultimate Fighter. And I remember seeing him when I used to sneak in, before the general classes, and I would catch the last half hour. They were nice enough to let me in because I wasn't an obnoxious person, and I was really respectful, so they let me watch like sparring. So I'd watch like Evan Dunham versus Gray Maynard, Martin Kampman, Jay Haran, like fucking golden era UFC times, golden era Extreme Couture, right? Extreme Couture is doing great now, and I'm just saying this was their golden era, their first one, right? Many to come, but this was their first one. And I was like, whoa, the guy, Amir Stahl and Matt Brown are here. Wow, I saw those guys in The Ultimate Fighter because I still watched it back then. In fact, that was probably one of the last seasons I did watch. And Mike Pyle would push Matt Brown's shit in so badly. And that was definitely the word on the street. And I was like, oh, fuck, people. Oh, yes, Mike Pyle was on a win streak, right? You know, he beat John Hathaway, was putting these young guys in their place, right? Across the pond. Now he's back, fighting a fresh-faced tough guy. It was like the opening fight on the Fox card. Those, back in the day, 4-fight main cards. Please, all this 6-fight bullshit. It was a 4-fight main card. And what happened in the gym, folks, is not what happened on that fight. Matt Brown came out and starched Mike Pyle. I know Mike Pyle had the notorious representation for being the gym guy, granted. But that aside, that's still a very realistic and apropos story here. Buckley could very well upset here. That being said, I'm going to go with Duraev, again, first or second round sub. Haven't bet anything on it because maybe I'm scared of this one. But also, I didn't like Buckley's body language in the interview. I hate reading too much into that, but boy, did it seem bad. He might have some PTSD from whatever Duraev did to him in the room. So we'll see. Demir. Is my ghoul off? I don't know, man. Look in the mirror. Minus 175. Gran Kutateladze plus 150. I'm actually going to go with Kutateladze here over Demir. Demir looks like he's really well trained. Really good camp. It looks like he's in shape coming in from Tiger Muay Thai. Finishes camp off at ATT. But at the end of the day, he looks like he needs to wrestle and he's got a serviceable game there. But I don't think he's going to be able to get takedowns. And if he can't wrestle when he needs to, then he really better hope his jab is on point. I could see it certainly sticking Kutateladze, who shifts a lot and can get caught. But he's got a lot of parrying and a lot of straight shot counters that he likes to work. You could tell he's really getting the feel for. Maybe he was working a lot of them coming into this fight, hence why he has a nice little bashed up nose. That worries me. Because it's only going to take a couple of those jabs to bust up Kutateladze's nose, and then you have to, again, not coming at the judges here. Okay, relax, everybody. But yes, I'm sure you would like to think, and if you asked every judge, they would say, and rightfully so, that if the busted nose happens in round 1, it has no effect on how they score round 2 or 3. But, again, folks, God forbid I'm bringing up this little thing called human nature. And when you see blood and damage, you tend to think more things are landing than they are. And the person is more perhaps damaged and impacted than they really are. And that's always a worry for me, I'm not saying you definitely should not ignore damage markers. Of course not. You should ignore and score and factor them in. You should not ignore. You should factor them in, right? But don't overvalue it, and be careful of the natural bias to overvalue it in rounds that it didn't necessarily happen in. Maybe things weren't contributed to it, right? So that's going to be a worry here. It's why it's keeping me away from a bet. But I am going to pick Kutateladze because he's the better wrestler. His defensive wrestling is beautiful, bonafik, and if he gets down to the ground, he's got a black belt in Japanese jiu-jitsu, and he's competent in submissions. So I don't see Demir scoring anything there. And Kutateladze seems to be the more impactful striker. He kicks a lot. And Ismagulov seems to have a good radar for kicks. I hope that he wants to train at Tiger Muay Thai to improve it because he doesn't necessarily check and can be kicked against people who willingly kicked, which not a lot of people do, but when they do, they can land. And I feel like that's going to be something for Kutateladze. And if he does get the feeling in any of his parry counters, hook counters. We've seen the dude, knocked out Felipe Silva when he was rocked. The guy, carries knockout power in that realm too. Can be the more damaging / impactful fighter there. If he doesn't get overwhelmed with volume and built on with a bloody nose, right? So I'm actually going to go with Kutateladze in a close competitive decision. I stayed away from it for that reason, but I'll go with him here. Hobo Cop, baby. Hobo Cop. Going town to town. Racially profiling people in trouble. Hobo Cop, baby. Part of Bolsonaro's royal guard sweeping out the streets of Sao Paulo from the filthy homeless. Joking there. Joking, folks. Not trying to fuck with you on house. I'm just saying. This guy definitely looks like looks like he's part of a homeless initiative, some Bolsonaro homeless initiative. He definitely looks like a Hobo Cop. He looks like that. Also looks like he's packing. But he's facing Julian Marquez, plus 150. Obviously, stated bias there. Julian Marquez, a guy I've done projects with, even hung out with or whatever. Not trying to fucking brag or name drop him. Believe me, I'm just trying to state potential biases here. Even though fucking doing someone's podcast or having them, hang out and watch fights with you at your house or whatever, should not contribute. Sorry, that's not my dogs. These are other dogs. A loud neighborhood with dogs. Should not contribute to me picking for or against somebody. Again, folks. Again, of course, same thing with the judges and the body work. I'm not saying that they go out purposely twiddling their mustache, go, how do I not score body work? Or I'm not saying that, they go out there and go, well, you got blood in one round, you got blood in all the rounds. Of course, they don't do that. But what's human nature, folks, right? Right? There's natural biases, and God forbid I try to state those, one of the few. And they are very real, A lot of people try to avoid those things and try to stick to to what's written, what's this and that, but again, what's written, back to the impact, and that's fucking subjective, and we weigh the subjective part the heaviest. I don't disagree, again, but it's just kind of funny when you break it down that way, right? Anyways here, so I'm stating my bias for Marquez here, because I'm also feathering the nest where I'm going to go. I am picking Marquez. I didn't think I was. I was like, oh man, I'm going to piss off Julian Marquez. I'm just going to be another media member writing him off here for my boy Hobo Cop. It was got to get back on track. After, it was a close nod. Not mad with that Petrosian thing, but again, it was, shit. You could argue all 3 rounds to either fighter. It really was one of those fights, but it was one of those things where I don't feel like impact was necessarily kept the same energy on. I feel like the more impactful shots in both rounds were for Hobo Cop in rounds 1 and 2. And then he clearly gets major impact and a big submission attempt. He almost finishes the fight on the floor and on the feet, which should have been enough to earn him round 3. But again, if someone's going by the damage thing, well then Hobo Cop getting doing the Josh Koscheck, Drew Fickett, Aljo Moraes dive into a knee thing, and usually it ends in a knockout. And Hobo Cop, it just ended in him losing the fight, not by knockout, but because he got a cut there. Even though he also did blood damage, later in the fight. Even though those numbers are bullshit, because I know they're bullshit, because I generously rounded down and counted 11 checks, and I believe Fight Metric only has Petrosian missing 5 of his like 50 leg kicks, and I'm like, no, because these motherfuckers don't know what checks are, so that's another reason why. You can't go with these striking stats, folks. And then that's what's being on the broadcast. And it's like, oh, but he's got the numbers. And it's like, these numbers aren't official the night of. And even the official ones end up being fucking wrong, folks. They're wrong. Go look at it. I generously rounded down to 11 checked kicks. And they are over double off of that mark, according to their own calculations. So, there's that. But again, there's that damage argument, I guess, for round 3, even though it is the least popular round of the scores, I believe, the score for Petrosian. But again, if you're really going to go with that, well, then why aren't you scoring rounds 1 and 2 for Rodriguez then? He had the more impactful ones, but, it's, I believe I saw my guy Luca Fury tweeting about this, and he's absolutely correct. Volume and perceived impact is what favors the judge's favor, and both of those things are biased toward striking, right? Again, back to that natural bias, and it's true. Doesn't make it right. Doesn't mean I agree with it. Venture to say opposite on both those, but it's true. It's the sensible deduction that you can make, because that's what is being rewarded. That's what is biased toward criteria, both written and interpreted. And I say that written and interpreted because there's three different things, folks. It's like a film, a fight, It's like a film analogy. There's three different films, right? There's the film that's written, there's the film that's shot, and there's the film that's edited. Those are three different films. The film that's written is not always the film that's shot. And the film that you see is not always the film that's shot, because you're seeing the film that was edited, right? And edited has the last words. So in this analogy, edited, the editors are the judges. The film being shot is clearly the fight being action. And the script is the criteria. All three of those things can arguably be perceived as different things in one thing, and that's the tricky part about all this, because you got, what's written, what's interpreted, and of course, the major X factor is the action that happens and how that determines it right or wrong, whether it's rightly determined, air quotes, or wrongly determined, air quotes, right? That action is going to send that interpretation in one way or another, and we're trying to tether all three of these things, the criteria, the judging, and the action that actually happens. We're trying to tie all these things together. We're trying to make it make sense, and God forbid, we'll never get complete consistency, but somewhat consistency, and certainly better consistency than what we're getting. So yeah, sorry, long rant there, but again, this is why a lot of scores are very justifiable, whether we like to admit it or not. And even though I was upset at this one, it's no robbery. It's not Maximov or Soriano level either. It's a close fight, but it was just annoying because it was a matchup that made no sense. Hobocop deserved better. Deserved to win for the better work, in my opinion. Better defense, more impactful shots, both from a technical nerd eye and a criteria reductive eye. I think that he wins under both of those versions of fighting scoring criteria, right? With a wink and a nudge on my own, because my own's meaningless, but which falls under the technical nerd hipster or whatever. But he completes it under both, in my opinion. But again, it's a close fight, and it really sucks, and it's really going to suck if he loses this fight, like I'm going to pick him to, because Hobocop can get hurt. Now, he can look more hurt than he seems to be. He rolls with a lot of punches, but the fact is he gets hurt, and he feels like he's on the tipping point, and he's due to be knocked out any time now. It was a real risk in his last fight. It almost happened in the fight before against Iron Turtle, and Marquez has never been stopped. They got the underlined chalk, like it's going under for sure, yet the guy who's an underdog is the guy who's never been stopped. That's kind of weird, right? And Marquez has got that dog in him, man. And I think the live crowd will make Hobocop more apt to exchange, to either which will either open himself up for a knockout or make himself tired if he doesn't get the knockout or finish, which will therefore, again, open himself up for a finish later on. And then you couple that in with Hobocop being, which makes sense, and arguably rightfully so, the most upset than anybody than the decision, right, of the last fight. But so much, in fact, he said in his interviews, and again, it's just fighter interviews, you got to take it with a grain of salt, but he did say he's going to be trying extra hard for the finish now. I don't like that. I don't like that attitude. I don't like overcorrecting the steering wheel, in general in this sport. It's dangerous. I talk about it all the time. I don't like the scorn attitude like you're coming out of a bad relationship, because that can create for a bad decision. An overcorrecting of the steering wheel there, right? Could be very bad. And you're going to do that against a guy who the crowd's probably going to be rooting for, and he's never been stopped or submitted because he's a fucking savage, and he comes on strong late in fights. So if you don't get your finish, you're dealing with hell on the back half of round 2 and round 3. So for that reason, Marquez is really cashed with some sub props and even sub slash round 2 props, which he hit on the nail on the head for me the last time out. I'm going to play the middle there. I'm not going to hit... Well, actually, hold on. I did maybe hit sub somewhere. I know Hobocop is accoladed, but listen, folks. Glover, we said earlier. Adolfo Vieira, this same weight division, right? We've seen this before. So I picked Marquez here. And I could play him money line, and maybe I should. I'll regret it here, but here's what I did. I played him round 2 and round 3, baby. I believe those are his finishing rounds, right? It's either 1 and 2 or 2 and 3. So that I've been kind of doing this pattern. And $20 on round 2 at plus 1,000. That's a nice return, of course, there. Another 2-unit neighborhood return. And then round 3 plus 1,600, 0.17U, 0.17U, 17 ducats for, another nice over 2-unit return there, if that hits. Now, in one house that offers the method and round, I did small sprinkles, only $10 a piece, folks, in that house, and sub round 2 plus 2,500, sub round 3 plus 3,300 for 10 ducats. So that's... I don't know what that is, but it's nice for very little if it does hit. Because he'll grab... That's the thing. Marquez will hurt someone and then just grab on and choke you out from all sorts of strange positions. And he's got the gorilla strength and underrated technique and cardio and go get after it, So I love... you guys know I'm a huge fan of Hobocop. But I'm also a fan of Marquez, baby. And I think he's, again... It's a flyer pick. It's a flyer plays, but they pay off big if they hit. So I took that there. Next fight, Adrian Yanez minus 285, Tony Kelly plus 240. I think this is going to be much more competitive than the line is. That's why I left Yanez out of my potential parlay. Or potential, I actually did lay in the parlay. A 2-legger. But I took Yanez. I'll take him by decision, but it could be a very dicey fight where Yanez people are sweating on tickets, and maybe it's overcorrection. The line, I don't know. He opened wider, but maybe it was an overcorrection on because Tony Kelly just being a douche with some xenophobic comics in the corner. Maybe it's like an overcorrection off of that. I'm not a Tony Kelly fan by any means, but I also don't want to fall into that trap. But as an analyst, I will pick against him unbiasedly. I do like me some Yanez though. I'll take Yanez by decision. Jazadovicius minus 230. Natalie Silva plus 95. I didn't look into this fight at all. I'll pick Jazadovicius. Court McGee minus 120. Jeremiah was a bullfrog plus 100. Surprised to see love on McGee, but I get it. McGee's been looking beastly. He could get KO'd here, but he's hard to finish. So I'll take him by decision, but I'm not going to play McGee. 1, miss the dog money train. 2, I wouldn't be confident on Jeremiah Wells. If he doesn't get the knockout, he has to grind. You can't grind a grinder, but he comes from a really good grinding school, and he is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt who looks to be improving his MMA wrestling. He might just try to follow the same playbook that his teammate Sean Brady did. Obviously he is not Sean Brady. Hence the line, but if I picked Court McGee in that fight and took a flyer and he made it more competitive, how can I not pick him here? Didn't play him, though, again, like I said, but what I did play is I actually took a shot on the over 2.5. I don't think either of these guys sub each other, so it's going to be either. And McGee, I was scared. He almost ruined my decision prop because his hands have been getting better, if anything, But that being said, I don't see him knocking Wells out either. So pretty much, so long as McGee doesn't get knocked out, I think this should be okay. And I parlayed the over with something for plus money. Danny Chavez plus 235, Ricardo Ramos minus 280. I'll take Ramos, but I want no part in this. Ramos just feels like he could potentially always shit the bed, and he does those weird behind-the-back kicks. Danny Chavez doesn't show it much, but he is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt under Cesar Carneiro. So maybe he'll be hard to finish. Maybe it won't be game over territory if he gets the back. And, cheeky judges, getting the back isn't everything, depending on the context of the round, of course. But I will take Ramos, not confident in it at all. I'll take him by a sketchy-ass decision. Gloria De Paula minus 260. Maria Oliveira plus 220. I'll take Gloria De Paula. Both like to strike, but I believe off memory she strikes better, so I'll take her. She's the favorite, no play. Cody Stamen minus 500. Eddie Wineland coming out from Fighting Fires for his yearly appearance. Hopefully not to get KO'd uncomfortably at plus 400. I think Stamen wins it, but this could be a potentially funny upset because I'm like, well, Stamen's not a big finisher, and if he doesn't take down Eddie, Eddie's got the big cage to dance around in. Eddie used to wrestle himself. Shit, what if he scores an upset or makes it a deceptively close fight? I'll still take Stamen by decision, but not super confident in it at that price. Phil Hoggs, minus 265, Darren Wynn, Team Teddy Bear, baby. Plus 215. Fighters look like they're built in a Build-A-Bear shop. That is Darren Wynn. That is also Devin Brownback. Like, come on, Devin, you got to fight, goddamn. And Drakkar Klose. All built in a Build-A-Bear shop, folks. That's right. Those are facts. Darren Wynn looks like he's in good shape, man. He made quiet improvements. Was able to squeak out a win against a guy who was not good. Haas, speaking of guys who potentially feel like they can fall apart, he's always going to have that bill, I think, to him. But could argue maybe he overly has it, Guys who have that don't get credited with it enough, while Phil Hoggs could be a current poster child of it, right? But I like Haas, man. He's really smart, student of the game. Just that doesn't count on things like hype or athleticism, actually working on his technique. Looks like he's been working a lot on his grappling, which is good. Been able to show that he can win decisions. Even when he gets hurt, he can still dig it out, make adjustments, and go to the body, which was beautiful against Kyle Dawkins, which we'll talk about next. Yeah, man, unless he gasses himself out, definitely has a high comic potential, like Jack Slack said on Twitter. I agree. But you know what, man? This is another angle, too, though, where this fight was booked 2 times before. And Darren Wynn pulled out both times. And, one of those times led to a last-minute opponent and, complete opposite style opponent. Not saying that's why. Fucking Chris Curtis is really good and deserves all the credit. Badass southpaw. Good dude. But yeah, got Haas knocked out for it. So aside from the karmic justice, Darren Wynn owes Haas a show up. And again, just like, the angle previously, based on one of my biggest betting angles of all time from a man who came from that very gym, a.k.a. that Darren Wynn comes from, a gym that trains hard. So, if you're injured, you're this, you're that, something's wrong with Darren Wynn. Kind of like Donald Cerrone. He's got to show up, buddy. He's got to show up. Whereas Haas, man, I don't know. That guy just looks like he's like a superhero. Who can only be dismantled in the cage, which is the problem. But I'm going to back him here, man. Maybe it's that potential fear, and, maybe it's like last week where I'm going to get burned again like Choi, right? You got to learn, Dan. But I ended up pairing Haas with, it was either between him and Dawkins, and I guess we'll get to that in a second, I guess why I'm picking Dawkins, but didn't choose him there. They're both probably 2 of my more confident ones, but if I'm going to pick one or the other, and I only needed one for this plus number, I paired Haas with the over for the Wells and McGee fight, and that pays plus 113 for a unit. And if that hits, that covers all the exposure of all the prop and round sprinkles that I previously listed, because those are my plays. You get what I'm saying? Whereas if one of those round sprinkles, especially them 2-unit bad boys hit, just one of those hits, it covers the total exposure regardless of what else hits. So that's kind of the coverage and the angle here. Playing safety first, then teamwork. Low exposure on this card, but going for some long shots as well. Kyle Dawkins minus 240, Roman Dolidze plus 200. Don't disagree with the spread, just wish it was tighter. Where it opened, didn't get it there. Kyle Dawkins, another Philly guy making a lot of improvements, well trained. But I got a quiet feeling that he could, fall apart too. He did that against Haas, the guy who everybody accuses of falling apart every fight, right? And Dawkins kind of did that. Granted, it was nice body work, and Dawkins has bounced back. Looked good against Holland, even before the headbutt, I think. But, that fight didn't really get to play out. Dolidze good enough to survive, training with guys like the other Romanov. Some really good guys out here in Las Vegas. But he's such a cowboy, and he fights with such crazy IQ and lack of process. I can't pick Dolidze. But, if he gets on top of Dacus, if he's able to survive, he is the bigger, stronger, more powerful guy, too, as well. Maybe he gets the big brother mentality on Dacus, can take over the fight. But I'm going to pick Dacus here by decision. Decision plus 150, not juicy enough for me to take a stab at. Maybe I will, since I'm not putting Dacus in a parlay anymore, because it was either between him or Hawes. Maybe I'll regret not backing Dukakis, but I'll pick Dukakis here. All right, how do we do on time? Terrible, I'm sure. 145, yeah, it was awful. I jinxed it. All right, taking Cater over Emmett, taking Cerrone over Lozon, taking Holland, or taking Lozon over Cerrone, sorry, taking Holland over Means, even though hold for the plays, taking Duraev over Buckley, taking Kutateladze over Ismagulov, taking Marquez over Hobocop, taking Yanez over Kelly, taking Jez Duviziez over Silva, taking McGee over Jeremiah was a Bullfrog, taking Ramos over my favorite Rainbow Six character, Chavez, taking Di Paula over Oliveira, taking Stamen over Wineland, taking Hoggs over Wynn, taking Dukakis over Dolidze. Parlayed Hoggs and McGee Wells over 2.5 for plus 113 at 1 unit. Sprinkled on Cater round 3 plus 1200, 0.17 unit, round 4 plus 2000, 0.10 unit, round 3 plus 3300, 0.10 unit. Sprinkled Marquez round 2 plus 1000, 0.20 unit, round 3 plus 1600, 0.17 unit. One house, very small, round 2 sub Marquez plus 2500, 0.10 unit, round 3 sub plus 3300, very small, plus 0.10 unit. Lozon round 1 plus 550 for 20 ducats, or for a 1 unit and $110 return, just over a unit, and for a unit return just sprinkled on Means by decision if it gets there for $20 for a nice unit return if that gets there. All right, follow me at Dan Tom MMA if I add any more. Thank you for supporting at mixedmartialanalyst.com. Click-throughs for some really shitty companies if you unfortunately use Onnit or Amazon. I think those are still up there. Or you can just go to the secure PayPal link to donate and support to the show straight up. It's also featured in my link tree, where you can find links to my YouTube channel, Daniel Tom MMA. Hashtag get Dan Tom till 1K, baby. Thank you so much for the support there, Daniel Tom on the YouTube channel. Thank you for sharing and supporting the show, which you can find on all social platforms at the PYN Podcast. Like, subscribe, please. I won't pollute your feed. Follow. And of course, at Dan Tom MMA on Twitter, where I'm most active and where I will add. All right, good luck on your picks and plays, and always protect your neck.